Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I explore Jill Goldstein's recent video, How HR Technology Can Transform HR. Welcome back to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. It's great to be with you again today for this HCI podcast episode, where I will be exploring the recent Jill Goldstein video titled, How HR Technology Can Transform HR. Jill Goldstein, one of the lead partners at Accenture, describes how HR technology can totally transform the HR function, but not without a business strategy at its core. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you on the flip side of this first clip.
I can remember the first client conversation I had in my role. It was very specific to benefits, and the client organization was very focused on same level of service at a reduced cost to serve. And that version of that conversation repeated itself for what felt like 5 years. I want at least as good service as I'm getting today, maybe a little bit better, but the key is I'm getting cost pressure, and I generally need to reduce my price to serve.
The world of HR tech is a really interesting one. And like she says, with her experience, the constant cost pressure to do more for less for clients, for organizations. And that's honestly what the pressure has been really across tech sectors, but certainly within the HR tech space. And so I really appreciate her laying out that kind of conundrum. It really can be hard in the HR tech space to be able to satisfy the needs of your customers. So as she goes throughout the rest of this short video, she'll explain a little bit about what her approach has been throughout her career and what we should be thinking about when we're trying to utilize and leverage the power of HR tech within the workplace.
Fast forward, I'm having very different conversations with my clients. They've been generally starved of investment for the last 10 years. They're finally getting some access to investments from the rest of the business to transform their HR organizations. In many cases, using the cloud HCM like Workday, SuccessFactors, or Oracle to drive that transformation so that they can free up capacity and expand their capability. That's a really big endeavor for many organizations to go through.
Every organization has had to go through digital transformation. Now, certainly this was a trend we were seeing before the pandemic even hit. But once the pandemic hit and everyone had to flip the switch and move to virtual workforce and distributed workforce almost overnight, the need for their HR systems, leveraging HRIS, leveraging HR analytics, and really the whole HR tech space took off. The need for good digital transformation, HR tech transformation throughout organizations became a necessity in pretty much every business. The problem was, for a decade or more, many organizations had not been investing in that functional area of the organization. And so constantly, the pressure to do more with less, that can only be sustained so long. So it's good that organizations are now trying to play catch up. And it's good, in fact, I think one of the positive outcomes of the pandemic was that it forced organizations to get caught up on their HR tech transformations, their digital transformations. But there's still a long way we have to go. And obviously this has caused a lot of challenges and hardships in organizations over the course of the last 15, 16 months.
So now what they're doing is they're bringing in my team to say, as we go live in this new operating model, can we leverage your people, process, technology, and data to accelerate our time to value, help our retained organization be more business-oriented, have access to analytics, and drive more quantifiable value. Clients are talking to us about doing workforce forecasting and planning, doing sourcing strategies about new and emerging technologies, making sure they have a global model that helps them find and onboard both permanent employees but also contractors and contingent workers. So all modesty to the side, talent and HR BPS rocks. And when used effectively, we can be the primary differentiator to our colleagues further up the value chain, specifically in T&O.
I'm excited to announce the publication of my new book from HCI Press, The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership: Ordinary, Everyday Actions That Produce Extraordinary Results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life.
So now, as organizations continue along the path of their HR tech, their digital transformations in their organizations, they're finally investing what probably they should have been investing all along to try to really make a difference, to drive the types of outcomes that the organization needs to see, including people analytics that can be utilized to better understand performance and in the gaps in what needs to happen to help the organization improve. All elements of the HRIS system, the analytics, as well as the self-service HR hubs for employees, all of these things become vital, particularly when you have contingent workers, when you have distributed workers, when people are working virtually. And so what she is seeing in her business is finally the industry, the function of HR being able to catch up to the need to be able to drive value up the value chain within the organization throughout the industry. It really is an exciting time for HR tech after kind of a long, hard slog of the last decade or so of people recognizing this stuff is necessary. But many of the larger businesses, larger organizations getting into the space, but many of the mid to smaller size organizations being really hesitant, and in part due to cost constraints, in part due to skill deficiencies and just not feeling confident that they'd be able to manage the technologies and the implementations. But ultimately now we're in a spot where really any organization is going to have to do this much, much better moving into the future as we get into the future of work, the future organizations, and how leaders will lead within those new contexts.
Imagine a T&O consultant is talking to a CHRO, talking about their HR transformation. That T&O consultant can and should be armed with the top 10 business decisions the CHRO is likely to make to either maximize or sabotage their investment in their cloud HCM. A T&O consultant would also understand what 5 analytics approaches are most effective as they're looking to transform their HR organization. And so in working with us, we can help the T&O consultant be a lot more informed as a business advisor, anticipating the challenges that the organization, the CHRO and their organization are going to go through, and hopefully help them to think through trade-offs as they come and approach similar situations themselves.
I love the way she closes out this short video. She's laid out what she and her organization is doing in the HR tech space, and as they're trying to help organizations navigate this digital transformation, HR tech transformation process. Ultimately, we need to get much smarter about the people in HR analytics that are most important to our organizations so that we can drive value and really address the biggest gaps in terms of performance, in terms of business outcomes. And HR should not be separated from the larger business strategy and discussion about what's going to help the organization to succeed. Strategic HR requires us to be part of that conversation with the C-suite. So if we're lucky enough to have an organization with a CHRO who truly is on the same level as the other chief officers in the organization, then we need to leverage that opportunity by speaking the language of business and talking strategy with all other facets of the organization, that through HR, through strategic HR, we're able to maximize the human capital potential of our people, our teams, our organizational units to drive success for the organization as a whole, to meet those main indicators, those main outcomes that the organization's going for. So we need to be really tightly attuned to those analytics. We need to be tightly attuned to the systems that are in place to help us to be successful. Let's look towards companies like hers to find those HR tech solutions to help us drive success within our organizations. And there are so many offerings for small to medium-sized businesses, for large corporations. There's a whole range of organizations providing these tech solutions. If we haven't already jumped on this bandwagon, the time has long passed us since it was really a necessity. So let's get on the bandwagon, let's move forward, and let's make sure that we're doing what we need to do for the success of our people, for the success of our organizations. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. As always, I hope you stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day, and I hope you have a great week.
We are excited about the launch of HCI's new magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine designed to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We will be publishing issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Check out the first issue and let us know what you think.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.